Hello everyone. Today I will start reading The Call of the Wild. This book was written by Jack London. This is a public domain book, so we can read it together publicly. Before I read another book called The Conquest of the Happiness, but I feel that book is out of my range, that I need to keep constantly checking the words and stop thinking what meaning of the sentences. So it's kind of a little bit difficult and challenging for me to read that kind of deep books. So I find another book. This book is more, I guess I check online, do some research. A lot of people recommend this book. Hopefully I can read it smoothly and reading with you guys. Okay, let's get started. The Call of the Wild by Jack London. Chapter 1. Into the Primitive. Old longines, nomadic leap, chaffing at a custom chain. Again from its brumal sleep, wakens the furring stream. To be honest, I don't understand this poem, but let's keep going. Buck did not read the newspapers, or he would have known what troubles was brewing, not alone for himself, but for every tied water dog, strong of muscle and with warm, long hair from Puget Sound to San Diego, because men, groping in the Arctic darkness, had found a yellow metal, and because steamship and transportation companies were booming the find, thousands of men were rushing into the Northern. These men wanted dogs, and the dogs they wanted were heavy dogs, with strong muscles by which to toil and furry coats to protect them from the frost. Buck lived at a big house in the sun-kissed Santa Clara Valley, Judge Miller's place. It stood back from the road, half hidden among the trees, through which glimpses could be caught of the wide wood veranda that ran across its four sides. The house was approached by gravelled driveways which would bound through widespread lawns and under the interlands bots of tall poplars. At the rear thing were on even a more spacious scale than at the front. There were great stables, where a dozen grooms and boys held forth, rows of vine-clawed servants' cottages, an endless and orderly array of outhouses, long grape arbor, green pasture, orchard, and berry patches. Then there was the pumping plant for the artisan well, and a big cement tank where Judge Miller's boys took their morning plunge and kept cool in the hot afternoon. And over this great immense Buckle Road, here he was born, and here he had lived the 4 years of his life. It was true, there were other dogs. There could not but the other dogs on so vast a place, but they did not count. They came and went, resided in the populous kennels, or lived obscurely in the recessions of the house after the fashion of toots. the Japanese pug, or Yasbel, the Mexican hairless, strange creature that really put nose out of doors or set foot to ground. On the other hand, there were the fox terriers, a score of them at least, who yelled fearful promises at Toots and Yasbel, looking out of the windows at them and protected by a legion of homemade armed with brooms and mops. But Buckle was neither house dog nor kennel dog. The whole realm was his. He plunged into the swimming tank or went hunting with the judge's sons. He escorted Molly and Alice, the judge's daughters, on long twilight or early morning rambles. On wintry nights, he laid at the judge's feet before the rolling neighborhood fires. He carried the judge's grandson on his back, or rode them in the grass, and guarded their footsteps through wild adventure down to the fountain in the stable yard, and even beyond, where the paddocks were, and the berry patches. Among the terraces he stalked in previously, and Toads and yearbirds he utterly ignored, for he was king over all creepy, crawling, flying thing of Judge Miller's place, human included. His father, Elmo, a huge St. Bernard, has been the judge's inseparable companion, and Buckle bade fairly to follow in the way of his father. He was not large. He weighed only 1,040 pounds, for his mother Shep has been a Scottish shepherd dog. Nevertheless, the 140 pounds, to which was added the dignity that comes of good living and universal respect, enabled him to carry himself in right royal fashion. During the 4 years since his puppyhood, he had lived the life of a settled aristocrat. He had a fine pride in himself, was even a trifle egotistical, as country gentlemen sometimes become because of their insular institution. But he had settled himself by not becoming a mere palm-parrot house dog. Hunting and kindred outdoor delighted had kept down the fat and hardened his muscles, and to him, as to the cold tubing races, the love of winter had been a tonic and healthy preserves. And this was the manner of dog bark was in the fall of 1897, when the Clodic strike dragging men from all the world into the freezing north. But Buckle did not read the newspapers, and he did not know that Manu, one of the gardener's helpers, was an undesirable acquaintance. Manu had one besetting sin. He loved to play Chinese lottery. Also, in his gambling, he had one besetting weakness, faith in a system, and this made his damnation certain, for to play a system required money, while the wage of a gardener's helper do not lap over the needs of wife and numerous progeny. The judge was at the meeting of the Rising Growers Association, and the boys were busy organizing an athletic club. On the memorable night of Manu's treachery, no one saw him and Buckle go off through the orchard on what Buckle imagined was merely a stroll, and with the exception of a literal man, no one saw them arrive at a little flag station known as College Park. This man talked with Manu, and money chickened between them. You might wrap up the goods before you deliver them, the stranger said gruffly, and Manu doubled a piece of stout rope around Buckle's neck under the collar. Twist it, and you will choke them plenty," said Manuel, and the stranger grunted a ready affirmative. Bucko had accepted the rope with quiet dignity. To be sure, it was an unwanted performance, but he had learned to trust in men he knew, and to give them credit for a wisdom that outreached his own. But when the ends of the rope were placed in the stranger's hand, he groaned menacingly. He had merely intimidated his displayer, in his pride believing that to intimidate was to command. But to his surprise, the rope tightened around his neck, shutting off his breath. In quick rage, he sprang at the man who met him halfway, gripped him close by the throat, and with a deft twist threw him over on his back. Then the rope tightened mercilessly, while Buck struggled in a fur, his tongue lolling out of his mouth and his great chest panting futilely. Never in all his life had he been so badly treated, and never in all his life has he been so angry. But his strength in bed, his eyes glazed, and he knew nothing when the train was flagged and the two men threw him into the baggage car. The next he knew, he was dimly aware that his tongue was hurting, and that he was being jolted along in some kind of conveyance. The horns shriek of a locomotive whistling across told him where he was. He has traveled too often with the judge not to know the sensation of riding in a baggage car. He opened his eyes, and into them came the unbridged anger of a kidnapped king. The man sprang from his throat, but Buck was too quick for him. His jaw closed on the hand, nor did they relax till his sense was choked out of him once more. "Yep, has feet," the man said, hiding his mangled hand from the badgerman, had been attracted by the sounds of struggle. "I'm taking him up to the booster of Frisco. A crack doctor will think that he can cure him." "Concerning that night is right," the man spoke most adequately for himself. "In a light shed back of Shannon on the San Francisco waterfront. All I get is $50 for it," he grumbled, and I won't do it over $4,000 cold cash." His hand was wrapped in a bloody handkerchief, and the right trouser leg was ripped from knee to ankle. "How much did the other mark get?" the salon keeper demanded. "$100 was the reply. "Wouldn't take as so less, so help me." "That makes $150, the salon keeper calculated, "and he's worth it, or am a squarehead." The kidnapper undid the bloody wrap-up and looked at his lacerated hand. "If I don't get the hydroprobe, it will be because you were born too high," laughed the salon keeper. "Here, lend me a hand before you pull your friend," he added. Dazed, suffering intolerable pain from throat and tongue, with the life half throttled out of him, Buck attempted to face his tormentors, but he was thrown down and choked repeatedly till they succeeded in feeling the heavy barious collar from off his neck. Then the rope was removed, and he was floored into a cage-like crate. There he lay for the remainder of the weary night, nursing his wrath and wondering pride. He couldn't understand what it all meant. What did they want with him? These strange men. Why were they keep him panting up in the narrow crate? He did not know why, but he felt opposite by the vague sense of impending calamity. Several Several times during the night he sprang to his feet when he shut the door rapidly open, expecting to see the judge or the boys at least, but each time it was the bulging face of the salon keeper and peered in at him by the sickly light of the tall candle, and each time the joyful bark that trembled in Buck's throat was twisted into a savage groan. But the salon keeper let him alone, and in the morning 4 men entered and picked up the crate. More tormentors, Buck decided, for they were evil-looking creatures, raged and unkempt, and he stormed and raged at them through the bark. They only laughed and poked sticks at him, which he promptly assaulted with his teeth till he realized that was what they wanted. Whereupon they lay down sullenly and allowed the crate to be lifted into a wagon. Then he and the crate in which he was imprisoned began a passage through many hands. Clerks in the express office took charge of him. He was carted about in another wagon. A truck carried him with an assortment of boxes and parcels upon a ferry steamer. He was trucked off the steamer into a great railway depot, and finally he was deposited in an express car. For 2 days and nights, the express car was dragged along at the tail of shrieking locomotives, and for 2 days and nights Buck neither ate nor drank. In his anger, he had met the first adventure of the express messengers with growls, and they had retaliated by teasing him. When he flung himself against the bar, quivering and forcing, they laughed at him and taunted him. They growled and barked like detestable dogs, meowed and flapped their arms, crowed. It was all very silly, he knew, but therefore the more outrage to his dignity, and his anger waxed and waxed. He did not mind the hunger so much, but the fear, suffering, and feigned his wrath to fever pitch. For that matter, high-strung and finally sensitive, the ill treatment had flung him into a fever, which was fed by the inflammation of his parched and swollen throat and tongue. He was glad for one thing: the rope was off his neck, and had given them an unfair advantage. But now that it was off, he would show them. They would never get another rope around his neck. Upon that he was resolved. For 2 days and nights he neither ate nor drank, and during these 2 days and nights of torment he accumulated a fund of wrath that boded ill for whoever first fell foul of him. His eye turned bloody shot, and his was metamorphosed into a rage fiend. So changed was he that judge himself wouldn't have recognized him. And express messengers breathed with relief when they bundled him off the train at Seattle. 4 my Ginger carried the crowd from the wagon into a small high-walled backyard. A stout man with a red sweater that snagged generously at the neck came out and signed the book for the driver. That was the man Buck divined, the next tormentor, and he hurled himself savagely against the bar. The man smiled grimly and brought a hatchet and a club. "You aren't going to take him out now?" the driver asked. "Sure," the man replied, driving the handkerchief into the crowd for a pry. There was an instantaneous scattering of the four men who had carried and from safe perches on top while they prepared to watch the performance. Buck rushed at the splintering wood, sinking his teeth into it, surging and wrestling in it. Whenever the head fell on the outside, he was there on the inside, snarling and growling as furious, anxious to get out as the man in the red sweater was calmly intent on getting him out. "Now, you red-eyed devil," he said, when he had made an opening sufficient for the passage of Buck's body. At the same time, he dropped the head check and shifted the club to his right hand.